So today is going to be a lesson in working with rubber. Rubber is a really excellent compound. It's got a lot of properties which make it excellent for kink gear. It's generally speaking food safe. You got to make sure that you're buying a food safe version before you get it. This right here is very cheap. I think it cost me about $1.50 or something off Amazon from a company called Rubber Cal. And this is just basically a 1 foot by 1 foot, quarter-inch thick sheet of neoprene rubber. This is not the spongy type of neoprene that people are familiar with wetsuits. This is a lot more like a typical hard rubber. Honestly, if I was going to put it into leather terms, it reminds me of a Latigo piece. With it, I've been able to produce several really interesting things, from ball stretchers to blindfolds. This one, in fact, was backed by rabbit fur, so it's excellent. I used some Sugru around the nose to shape it a lot more to my face and make it fit very solidly. It's got double riveted straps with snap closures. We're going to be making something very similar today, which is a gag. I've found actually that I've been biting through the ball gag that I have in the scene, so I decided to go with something a bit more solid and base it off of a mouth guard. So the challenges for today are going to be figuring out how to attach the mouth guard properly to the leather, as well as building the gag frame itself, because I'd like the whole piece to be relatively interchangeable depending on what exactly it is that I'd like to do with it. So with that being said, we're going to jump right on into the project. Alright, as you can see, I've already begun laying out a template with my hardware, the snaps, which I'm going to be using to attach a secondary piece, which will actually have the mouth guard attached to it. I've kind of got the markings laid out for a groove for the nose and an overall square with strap attachment points for the strap that goes back around the head. I'm using standard Chicago screws and just standard leather snaps for it. These are going to be very heavy duty. As you can see on the snaps here for the blindfold, these snaps are pretty tough to get out. It actually takes quite a bit of force. So these things are still going to hold solidly, be very secure overall. Rubber is a very fun medium. This is just kind of a small scratch swath piece that I cut out here. As you can see, if you do buff it a bit, this was just buffed with some 3M rubbing compound. If you do buff it, it gets a bit more of the rubber matte shine, and but if you leave it just plain as it comes out of the factory to you, it has a slightly uneven but more reflective surface. It cuts very easily. I mean, you can just simply take a razor blade to it. This stuff being more thick takes more than one cut, but then you can just cut it to whatever shapes you want very easily. It doesn't move around like leather does. And this is a number 3 edge beveler. This is a leather working tool, a number 3 edge beveler. And you can actually use this to really smooth out your edges and get a nice smooth edge versus a nice hard edge, which is what I've noticed I've been getting typically whenever I cut it. This way then your pieces are a little bit better. They're going to match with the skin better, and you can see it's now got a nice smooth beveled edge to it, so it's not going to be as sharp as a sharp edge is going to be here. So with that being said, I am going to go ahead and I'm going to start out by cutting out my rough template here. What I've got is I've got about a 4-inch rectangle with about a 4-inch by 3-inch rectangle. I've got a 1/2 inch that comes down here for the nose, and that's 2 inches wide here. And I've got roughly a 2-inch wide circle here in the middle. And that's basically where I'm going to be able to pass through things for whatever kind of gags that I want to use at that moment. So what we've got is I'm just going to start a cutting here. Good. got the rough rectangle cut here. I've got a little bit of a miscut from where I was doing those earlier projects. I'm just going to trim that away. An X-Acto blade or a razor knife works really well with this material. I mean, it does cut quite easily. It does take a firm hand to do that, but it does actually cut quite well. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut into that nose. Good. And now I'm just going to cut along the bridge of it. But I kind of was thinking through it, and I've decided not to actually cut the hole in the center of this. I think having it be a solid gag is probably a little bit better. So at this point, I think having a hole in the middle probably just make the whole thing a little bit more complex than it needs to be. At this point, I just need a gag, so I think we're going to do that. The next thing I'm going to do is I've kind of decided, after just giving it a test fit, to kind of cut these corners a bit down. So that way then it will fit a little bit better to my face. I didn't like these particular corners there, so I'm just going to trim them off. Kind of gives it a bit of a different look to it, and I'm just going to even out that cut just a bit. There we go. And that's going to fit a little bit better to my face. So in order to make something that actually attaches to this particular piece and makes it a bit of a, well, actually a functional gag, because I need to attach this to it, I've decided I'm going to go ahead and use Instamorph plastic. So I'm going to go ahead and boil up some water and show you guys how that works. Alright, so now I've got some water boiling off to the side here, and we're going to go ahead and use the Instamorph plastic. This stuff is great. It is food safe. It is not, however, dishwasher safe, which makes it a little difficult to sanitize, but with alcohol and things like that, it's still an excellent kink material. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take kind of a handful of these beads, and I'm going to put them in the bottom of just a heavy cup here is good. This is sort of just my general shop mixing cup. So it's got a lot of stains and things like that, but then you're just going to simply pour the super hot water right on top of them. And you'll see it's going to go from white to clear as it slowly starts to really heat it all up. So once I kind of see that everything really is clear, I'm going to go ahead and pull it out and start molding it. By its nature, it does end up white. Now, I do personally like things black, so I'm also going to show you guys how I color it. Because there's a lot of fun things you can do with coloring this stuff. So, just got 2 spoons. I'm going to go ahead and kind of pull out the pile of these, and you can't see really on that camera, but they are clear and water's still hot. So now I'm just going to kind of flatten it out into a sheet. Really kind of meld all the beads together. Folding it back on itself, kneading it together. It's starting to get stiff again, a little harder to work with. So I'm just going to flatten it out as best I can. And I'm going to go ahead and stick it back in the hot water just a little bit to soften it back up. Now, to show you guys what I'm aiming for, this right here is the clip that normally goes on the mouth guard. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to replicate this sort of ball clip thing that this cable's got on it, so that way it can basically lock into a plate, which I'll then be securing to my rubber here. So now that it's good and soft again, very malleable, I'm basically just going to take some India ink. This is black India ink, though the bottle's been stained with green. I'm just going to drop a line, just sort of a sum in there. And now I'm basically going to knead that in. It is going to get my hands all messy and inky, but it should be worth it when it's done. Alright, it looks like I'm going to need to re-soften this stuff anyway, as it did go ahead and it's already lost its flexibility. This stuff can be a little tricky to work with, but it's pretty good for a lot of applications. Now that the chunks are darker, you can kind of see them in there a bit more too. One thing is that it will turn a lot lighter than you think it will when you first start, so definitely make sure to add enough dye that you know it's going to be the right color. In this case, I want it black, 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 so I'm going to add quite a bit more. Then you just simply fold it up into something like a pouch to hold the dye in the middle. And you're going to, again, get your hands all inky. But twist it and knead it and pull it like it's taffy. It'll slowly work the color throughout the entire plastic. And of course, keep some paper towels handy. You see the water kind of pulls away some of the dye. Anything that's on the surface of it, but it will still definitely get into that plastic. That's why we made it into a pocket. It's getting a little bit stiff to work with again. I'm actually going to give it a direct heat bath into the boiling water. That's going to really soften it up and give me a better place to start here. Because next I have to start forming the bead that's actually what's going to lock the mouth guard down. You can see it's still kind of got some slight transparency to it. You know, I think I'm alright with it being a bit marbled, just because this is a bit of a rush project and I could replace this particular part later. So I'm going to go ahead and start actually forming the next bit while I'm waiting for my water to reheat. So the next bit is going to be that clip piece, which is going to then attach into this the sheet here that I made. And the sheet is going to need a couple of holes in it, so that way it will attach. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of get my hole punches out. I'm going to use the smallest bit that I have, which is of course still smaller than my Chicago screws, so I know that it's going to be a good fit. Sorry that the camera's being janky here today. But then I'm just going to go ahead and knock a couple holes in it. Alright, so I'm starting to knock the holes into it now. And the main thing that I want to do here is just want to make sure that they're a nice, even rectangle of holes. Now obviously I'm not making it all the way through because the plastic is starting to stiffen up, but at the same time it's more than enough for me to be able to go around with the knife and finish popping out these holes. But now I've got the plastic ready here for making the bit that's actually going to attach. So for that, I just need a cylinder with a small dot on the end for it to be able to latch in place. Having some spoons or something close by just to help form the plastic always a good idea. Flats, different shapes that you may need to really connect everything up. Just kind of compare sizes here. Remember, it doesn't have to be perfect as long as it gets the job done and will hold for the long term. Obviously, we don't have a lot of manufacturing tools or skills or something like that, so sort of make it the best that you can. Alright, looks like it needs to be heated up again. And I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to heat up both pieces. I'm going to heat this up directly in the boiling water. This is fine to be just in the small cup here. So again, we're just trying to get it good and flexible before we take it out. And then we're going to bind the two together. Good, good, good. 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 Now let's hammer these out while it's still good and warm. Good. Now I'm just going to attach this squarely in the center and just sort of meld the plastics together. Excellent. While it's still soft, I'm going to go ahead and just finish cutting out those holes. Maybe even push these through. So then that way then they'll be kind of locked in place. Good. So I've got my holes, I've got my locking pin, and now we're just going to simply wait for this whole piece to cool down while then we'll attach it here to this rubber. Just to kind of see how it's going to frame out here. Looks like I'm going to need to attach my straps next, and then we will, there we go, even that out a bit. So after I attach my straps, then we'll kind of go back and attach this piece, because looks like there's probably going to be some overlap there. Excellent. So next, to attach the, while we're kind of set this off to the side to cool, what is that? Okay, it's just dust. So next what we're going to do is we are going to go ahead and start putting in the holes for the straps that are going to go around. For that we need to make some straps first. Just like I did with my other piece, I'm going to just sort of make two 1-foot straps because that's as long as I have here, really, on the cutting mat and the leather or rubber. Oh, and I need to get my buckle. This time I am actually going to be going for a buckle. I've got one right here. I also happen to have a locking buckle around here somewhere. But this is the same size strap and everything, so that's fine to work with. This particular buckle is... Alright, so I'm probably going to be able to do about a 1/2 inch strap or so. A 1/2 inch strap is going to be plenty. A little bit more is not going to be bad either. Because I do have about 2 inches worth, I think I'm going to make them about 3/8 inch and just sort of make sure that they are nice and secure. So I'm just going to go ahead and kind of mark 3/8 inch on my rubber. And we'll go ahead and mark 3/8 inch on the below that one as well. Good. Got 2 marks there. I don't know if you can easily see them or not, but we'll do the same thing over here. And we'll do the same thing right below that. Good. Now we just have to cut them out. This is just actually a lot easier than cutting leather because this stuff does not move around much. The ruler does, however. Good. 1 strap. 2 strap. Red strap, blue strap. Good. There we go. 2 straps, nicely cut out. Next, we're going to go ahead and add the attachments to this particular piece of rubber. So obviously this is the nose groove here. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do the similar thing to what I did on this blindfold, which is either you can go for rivets. In this case I wanted a more industrial look. I'm going for the Chicago screws. Actually, change of plans. I'm going to go for the rivets. The rivets are going to be just as secure and everything. Actually, a little bit more secure, I think. But that way then the whole thing will just match. So now what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to measure my overlap and specify and mark out where I want my rivets. So these rivet heads are pretty small, but I just have to kind of make sure I plan those out right and make sure I know exactly where they're going to be centered so I can do the same holes on both pieces. Alright. So we're looking at about oh, I'm sorry. By the way, these are 5/8, not 3/8. What am I doing? So it looks like we're going to be at about a 1/4 inch and about 3/4 of an inch, or where the holes are going to be. So that's not too bad at all. Excellent. And I personally just eyeball the center of the strap because that's a pretty easy eyeball to make. And my hammer, there it is. Good. And you can see this just simply makes quick work of those tiny holes. Great. Now the position of this on my piece, is going to be interesting. I think just centered right there on the side is going to be good. And so I'm just going to go ahead and mark my start point. And then mark again the same thing, roughly center, and about 1/4 inch, and about 3/4 of an inch. Actually, looks like I'm going to go a little bit deeper than I had originally marked. There we go. So now, again, just sort of centering it up to where it's going to be, hammering through, and centering there, and hammering through. Next comes actually attaching the rivets, which is a very easy thing to do. For that, you'll need a rivet setter and a rivet anvil. And of course, you'll need rivets. These you can just get in bulk from Tandy Leather Store. That's where I got these. I think I got them actually at, they're Tandy Leather branded, but I think I got them at Hobby Lobby. So you just simply back it. And I'm going to go ahead and, yeah, we'll just do them one at a time. Then you line up your holes, and you place the other one. And I'm going to go ahead and kind of just line things up and set the other one in place, so that way I know they'll be right when I hammer them both in. And because they kind of snap together before you actually set them, so you can hear it. There you go. So they're kind of locked in now. Now I'm just going to go ahead and set that directly over the anvil, so that way I know I'm right in the middle, and then just, and we'll do the same with the other one. Good. Now we've got a very secure strap. I'm going to go ahead and do the exact same thing on the other side. Again, just a mark, and it's another mark, and centered. Good. And the next. A little bit higher than that. There we go. And here, now we're just going to, again, do the same kind of thing. I had about a 1-inch overhang. And again, just going to mark that point. Here I'm actually lining it up using that strap as sort of my guide. And again, 3/4 and 1/4. And then just sort of using these guys as an eyeball measurement. And this one. Good. Caps. Good. Now I'm just going to kind of, again, pull them a bit center. Make sure that it's properly lined up. And then just going to go ahead and set them in place. Make sure, again, you use the curved side of the setter. Good. Good. So now that is solid. Also, this piece is now finished cooling down for the most part. I'm going to go ahead and kind of give this a test fit and see if it actually goes in. I think it's a bit big. That's what she said. Yeah, it is still a bit big. I'm going to go ahead and reheat some water and reshape this. Alright, I let it get malleable again. Now I'm just going to fit it together. This time I'm going to use a pair of pliers just to kind of shape it together the way that we need it to be. And this way then I can get a little bit more control over the final version. Yeah, that's much closer in size. Something else you can do if you did want to sort of increase the complexity here, you can actually cut this stuff the same way that you would rubber or anything else. It will move on you as you do it, but you can get some cleaner lines when you're done with it. It's best to kind of go with a chopping motion rather than a slicing motion, because slicing motion, as you can see, tends to skew the any other holes or things like that that you've made. So just kind of be aware of that as you do it, and you can try to get a neater product when you're done with it. There we go. Yeah, slightly neater. And while we're here, I'm just going to kind of test gauge the, needs to be smaller in the middle. Good. It's a little bit better. It's got a little bit more of a pronounced lump up there, and good. Now you could simply just do something like glue it or something like that here. Really, I don't necessarily want to glue it. It's going to be right around my face, so if there's any tastes or fumes, that's probably bad, even if they're food safe tastes and fumes. But it should be quite good. Worst case scenario, I'm thinking I may just mount this exact piece right in there, but we'll go ahead and let this guy dry and cool down and see exactly how it feels. I'm going to also give it a little bit of an arc, just because my face isn't an arc and it would be nice to match. Alright, it's set up a bit more here, but I'm going to go ahead and sort of mark out where my holes are going to be. Just simply because this particular hole punch that I have with the interchangeable tips, it's also got this great little pokey thing that kind of goes down the center, so I can just and you'll see now I've got 4 pinprick points that I know are where my holes are going to be. So I'm going to go ahead and hammer out those. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and try this guy out first. Make sure that he attaches in. Still too warm. I'm going to go ahead and wait. Maybe you have a cigarette or something before this is actually finished, and then take it from there. Okay, so I did go ahead and I went out, and it fits, which is absolutely great. So I'm quite happy about that, and now I know exactly where my holes are going to be. Go ahead and pop that guy off, and I'm going to go ahead and pop in my holes. Again, just using the smallest hole punch that I have here. I think that's, I don't even know, it's like 3/8 or a quarter or something. Just choose whatever size is appropriate for the holes that you need to make for whatever rivets or Chicago screws you may use. Okay. Good. And last one. Now, had I been a thinking man, I would have done that first, and so I can trim off that little bit of edge there. Okay, good. Because I attach these straps, which is going to make that attachment a little bit harder. So, all right. Next step, more riveting. You have to forgive me, folks. I don't do this routinely, so I'm making it up as I go along. Going to make this one, setting this particular one difficult here, but hey, who doesn't love a challenge? And the last one. Back for it. Oh, there it is. Good. Now we are going to go ahead and set them the same way. Good. I'll have to do. Good, good. That is solid now. This is going to be the tricky one. I'll tell you what, I'm going to do this in the opposite direction, because it should be a little bit easier for me to do it this way. Good. And the last one. Good. Now we've got our plastic properly secured there, and our mouth guard pops right on. Next is going to be making the strap itself. There we go. And for that, I'm going to need to find the locking buckle that I purchased the other day and forgot to bring over here. Alright, so I found my nice locking buckle here. I picked that up from Tandy. Very inexpensively. So what we need to do is we need to start out by making sort of that half loop and cutting the nice hole in on the end, so then that way it'll attach to the buckle nicely, and then we'll kind of loop back and add some rivets there to it. So the first thing I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to kind of mark the cut, the ridge a little bit. I'm just going to actually use my knife to do that. We're going to take a trick out of leather working and actually sort of make a quick cut, a V-cut, into this leather right here. And what that's going to do is that's going to give us the just a little bit more of a angle right there on that ridge. So we're not going to cut all the way through it. We're just sort of taking a small sliver out to make it bend a little bit easier right at that point. Now there is a tool you can use to do this. I don't have that tool. I'm using this. And that way then when it bends neater. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to poke a hole on that center point. Good. And we're going to go ahead and pull it through and try to lace it up, basically. There we go. Might take a little bit of work just to kind of fiddle that buckle through there, and it did just break my strap. So, with that being said, it seems I got to come up with a new solution. I'm going to pause the camera and take care of that while I also fit this with a little bit more of a curve that matches my face using some boiling water. Alright, what I simply just did is I went with the other, I cut this clean and knocked off, and then I just basically started out without that extra V-cut in it so it wouldn't split, because that was my stupidity. So now what we're going to simply just do is rivet down this particular line here, and obviously it's going to be a little bit more challenging because I've got that buckle in the way now. Again, learn from my mistakes, plan first, install second. So I'm just going to make some marks, and one there. Good. And I'm going to pop this guy back out. There we go. And now we're going to go ahead and set in some additional holes for rivets to kind of go through. I'm actually going to go ahead and fold this in half on my point, so that way then I can cut both holes at once. Takes a bit more hammering, but you get your marks through and it completely takes care of the secondary hole. Good. Again, lined up. And all the way through. A little uneven. I did get a mark here though. Normally I wouldn't be rushing, but I'm impatient. So I guess I would be rushing. Alrighty. And again, just struggling to sort of get that on. There we go. What's nice is that rubber is in many ways like leather working, and it's more forgiving in some ways, and it's less forgiving in others. It is very nice and very stretchy, so for that, it's very forgiving. Alright. Now we're going to go ahead and install the rivets. Again, I'm just going to go for 2 for extra security, because really this is going to be a higher stress point because of that bend and because I didn't do the V-cut. And then good. Good. Looks like my rivet's digging in nicely into the rubbers. So next we just have to kind of go back and make some holes for this thing to go through. I'm actually going to go ahead and I think go with the next size up on my holes on the other side, just simply because it's so difficult to kind of get that strap locked in place. Having the next size up should make that a much easier process. So my initial holes were 3/16. We are now moving up to 1/4 of an inch. There we are. And now we're just going to be making some evenly marked holes down the length. Let's say 4-inch adjustments. 1/2-inch increments. I don't really know whose head's going to be that small, but I'll have a hole for them should they come by. And good. So now I can basically just pop it into any one of those holes. And it is secured and even padlockable. Great, so then we just simply snap on the mouth guard. There we go. And we've got a pretty good gag. The only next step that I have that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to kind of go back through and bevel the edges of this rubber with my edge beveler. Again, just to kind of make note of where I'm failing, that would be something that should be done beforehand. There we go. Just because it's a little bit easier if it's done beforehand. Good. 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 Not exactly the most consistent edge beveling, but it'll get the job done. And then we're going to do the same thing around here, especially around this part that connects to the face. Good. Good. And you know what? I think I'm going to leave the front of, no, I'm going to go ahead and bevel that too. Good. Kind of sneak it in that edge there. Good. Now we've got beveled edges all around. It's going to be much more comfortable, ready for, I wouldn't say everyday wear, but definitely ready for use. As always, guys, let me know if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, and I will be glad to address them and help you guys through any problems you have in making your own stuff. Thanks so much, and if you guys have any questions, just let me know.